In order to make pasta, you just need a couple of ingredients. You can just even have some flour and water. Adding an egg in there really helps. The salt also helps add some flavor and helps the gluten develop. You can, traditionally for pasta, you use what's called semolina flour, which comes from a special kind of wheat that is very high in protein, and so you're able to get a lot more gluten development in there. It also has a little bit more of a coarse grind to it, almost more like cornmeal. But if you don't have any or can't find any semolina flour, you can definitely use all-purpose flour and it works great as well. Either way, it turns into some great pasta. So to make the pasta, we do 1 cup of flour, and you can make more or less of this. 1 cup of flour and 1 egg is going to make about 1/3 pound of pasta. You want about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So then we just mix those two ingredients together. You make a little well in the center of your flour. So you put in 1 egg, and then you're going to be putting in about 1 tablespoon of water. You may need to add a little bit more, you may need to add a little bit more flour. It really depends on how humid things are. And then you just mix it all together until you get a nice dough. It's going to be a pretty solid dough. It still is a little bit dry. I probably don't want to add quite another tablespoon, probably just about 1/2 tablespoon. Sprinkle that in until I get a nice, fairly firm dough. Once I have that dough, then I can start getting my hands into it and start kneading that. You can knead it in the bowl, you can knead it on the table. If you do it on your counter space, just sprinkle on a little bit of flour, spread that around, and then knead it. You're going to want to knead this for a good 10 minutes. This is one where you do want a lot of gluten development in there. Gluten is the protein that is found in flour, and it's what gives foods that nice stretch and that texture that's really unique to flour-based foods, wheat flour-based foods. So what we're trying to get here is for it to be nice and smooth and elastic. You can tell it's done really by when you look at it. Right now, you look at it and there's a lot of cracks in it, and so it's not smooth yet. And so we're not there to it being elastic enough. Another test that you can do to see how well developed the gluten is by taking a little chunk of it and then just stretching that out slowly, stretching that out until you can either see through it, or if it tears before you're able to see through it, then there probably isn't enough stretch in there yet. Here I'm almost there. There's a couple of places that I can pull it to see through it, but for the most part it starts ripping on me before I get there. So it's not quite stretchy enough yet. Now we look at this and we see it's getting really smooth. Let's do a stretch test as well. So I'm going to break off a little chunk. And I'm going to just stretch this out, see how thin I can get it before it starts ripping on me. So I'm starting to get this really, really thin before it starts ripping. And so I think I'm there and I have some good gluten development in here. The next step is resting the dough, about a 1/2 hour to an hour. Resting the dough helps that gluten develop further. The reason for this is as the water continues binding with the flour, that is what forms those gluten structures. So this resting is really, really important. It's not just there just because it's cool. It's there in order to allow that gluten to develop. So you'll just set it down and let it rest. You could cover it with a bit of plastic wrap or a towel just to keep it from drying out. And then we're going to let that rest for a little while. Now that it's been about a 1/2 hour, we're ready to roll the dough out. You want to get the dough pretty thin, but really just how thin depends on your own personal preference for your pasta. While you can definitely go thinner than this is going to be about as thin as you're going to want for any pasta. And then I'll just go back and forth. You can make them as wide or as thin as you want. If you're a little more particular about the shapes looking even, then you can just be a little more careful with it. So like I said, this can be a nice spaghetti, or you can just go down the other way, make a more egg noodle type size. So then you have your pasta there. You can just sprinkle a little bit more flour over the top in order to keep them from sticking. And then you're going to bring them together and toss them a little bit in that. Let them toss around in that flour, get all coated so they don't stick together quite as easily. And then spread them out a little bit, and you can let them dry for about a half hour just so that they don't stick as much in the pot. In order to cook the homemade pasta, you do it pretty similar to just regular dry pasta. You get a pot of water, you bring it up to boiling. It is a lot more important to add some salt to this water, just so you can have a slightly higher boiling point to let it cook a little faster and not stick together. And then it cooks a lot faster than dry pasta does. In fact, typically about 2 minutes and you're done. And so you're going to put it in about 2 minutes. If you like it a little bit more done, you can go up to 3 minutes. If you go much longer than 4 minutes, you're going to be to mush. So you put it in 2-3 minutes, and then you take it out and you enjoy it however you want to enjoy your pasta. I hope that you will and your family will enjoy this pasta and be able to have ways to continue having pasta even if you're not finding it in the stores. Enjoy, and enjoy cooking together as a family. Thank you.